do all the dad jokes you want. I'm sure somebody think they're great.
It is 6 o'clock and time to call our meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please? Debbie Metzger. Here. Mary Kendrick. John Mell. Here. Jim Cedino. Here. Cecil Burdette. Here. Angela Evans. Here. Rick Miller. Here. Sheila Spillman. Here. Madam Mayor, you have a quorum. Thank you, and if everybody would rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, Council, we are ready for approval of the agenda. There's a couple, actually one change that we need to make. If you see on your desk, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but we have this purchase order. We need to add that, so I'm asking that we add that as item A and move down the rest of the items under business items to consider. With that exception, we're ready for approval of the agenda. I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by Sheila Spielman to approve the agenda as, I'm sorry, Angela is corrected the proper, okay, sure. Is that okay for you, with you? To approve, or amended rather, the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, Council. Motion carries. All right, Maris. Sorry, I got carried away. Turned off my button too soon. I just have a couple things. First of all, I know she's not here, but I wanted to share with the council, and if you see Pam when you're up at City Hall or around town, please tell her thank you. She did a tremendous amount of work calculating the overcharges for the gas. I believe that that's completed. Some of you might have seen a credit on your bill that the day she was working on mine, I kept getting notices and my bill kept getting smaller and smaller, so that was kind of fun. But I just know that that was an incredible amount of work, and we're really glad that that issue with those gas meters has been resolved, and that we've made that right with our customers as well. The other one is Jared. I know that you have looked at that street light on Commercial and Grand 1,001 times, and I am so incredibly appreciative, and I would like to say on behalf of many community members who have commented on it, that you were willing to look at it 1,002 times. My understanding is that we believe that we have found and repaired the issue with it, and so I'm holding on with bated breath for the next rain, because I fully expect it to be functional before and after. So thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate it. That's all I have. We're ready to move on to council member comments. Let's start at your end, Sheila.
I just have two quick things. First of all, I want to thank Jared. Thank you very much for acting and working so fast on getting that stop sign put up. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hopefully that'll prevent other vehicles from landing in my yard. And second, I am working on the flags. I have the numbers. I apologize I have not gotten back with you. It has been crazy, busy. So, but I think what we're gonna do is just maybe order 1 or 2 to make sure we can secure them onto the flagpole before we order 80 and realize that we can't do what we wanna do, okay? So maybe I'll call you. So, but thank you guys very much.
All right, thank you, council. We are ready for city administrator's comments.
So going back and talking a little bit about the gas meters, that was a hugely frustrating situation. And when we were depending on a contractor to do quality work and sell us a good product, and we found out that there was some issues with it, it was extremely difficult because we were defending the process and coming to find out that it was a huge mistake on their part. So they have come back and made the repairs and changed the metering system. I'm going to tell you, we'll never use that contractor ever again. So I'm glad that they came back and did what they're supposed to do, but it was with a lot of coaxing, a lot of conversations. We even had a meeting with Patrick with them. We actually put it on a written situation where we put down our expectations, which they didn't meet, by the way. So just wanted to share that with you. And, you know, really want to thank staff as well. And you are absolutely right. Pam went above and beyond. Basically, she was doing her job twice to make it where everybody was paying what they're supposed to pay. So I was very appreciative of that. We have a lot of things going on, and that's why the agenda is changing and expanding all the time. And I'm just grateful for some really good staff that's working hard to get a lot of things done. So I just wanted to share those 2 things. We have 2 things I want to bring up, and a new employee. We have Elizabeth here that she is taking Tanner's spot, and we are going to swear her in right now, if you guys are ready. This is always a cool thing. I always like to watch this.
You raise your right hand, and then just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear,
I do solemnly swear,
or I do solemnly,
or I do solemnly,
sincerely and truly,
sincerely and truly,
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Kansas,
of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of Assistant City Administrator,
the duties of Assistant City Administrator,
so help me God,
so help me God,
or this I do
or this I do,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
So I think I shared a few things about Elizabeth, that she's moved here from Colorado, and she's had some pretty good experience in working in government, and I think she's going to be a great part of this team. I'm sure you guys are going to get a chance to know her and spend time with her and ask her questions and maybe even drill her on some of these questions, but she'll be ready. Another thing I wanted to share is I put this flyer in front of you all. The Rice County Municipal Airport, and we have a hangar ribbon cutting on the 27th. It's going to start at 8 o'clock, but we're actually going to cut the ribbon at 8:30. And this is a project that Tanner worked really hard on. I'll be calling him to make sure that he's there as well. But would really love to see council members there for this. This was an over $1 million project with the gas dispenser as well as the hangars, which cost us 2.5% of the total project. So we got our money's worth and made it some improvements to the airport. So hopefully you guys can all make it out there. The last thing that I wanted to bring up is, as you all recognize Daniel, he's going to give a little bit of an update and a report on where we stand in regards to the water treatment plant. Some really good news is that we had moved forward with some of the suggestions for taking out the grit in the DO pond, and our staff has been working really hard on that as well. So the pump that we purchased and that we're going to be using anyways for other projects, but that came in really handy for this project as well. We have the roll-offs that are actually collecting all the grit, and I think one of them is about half full. So we're going to keep working on trying to take out more and more of that grit. And today I sent a letter to KDHE and telling them all of our progress, not just on the design, but progress in regards to our water quality. Something I didn't know, didn't find out because I didn't get official notice from KDHE, but the stream warning has been rescinded. So that was really kind of a good thing. So lots of positive things in regards to the wastewater treatment plant. So I'm going to hand it over to Daniel. He's going to share some information and let you know where we stand on this project.
Thank you, Troy. I would also want to reiterate that the city staff has done a really good job out there. We're getting some really good effluent quality numbers, well enough that stream advisory has been rescinded, which is a big deal because it's just a flag that we've now taken off that for people to look at. In the process of I do want to let everyone know, in the process of the sludge removal, it's something that needs to be done. KDHE wants us to do it, but the unfortunate part of that in short term is going to kind of mess with our opportunities of the effluent because we're going to be stirring a lot of stuff up. So far, we haven't seen a huge impact to that, and that's attributable to the staff. So hopefully those will keep up, but it's also known by KDHE if there is some blips in that consideration, it's due to that, that particular issue. So I have provided you three different components. I have a memo, I have some cost estimations, and then I have some maps. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time because I know you have a busy agenda, but I did want to kind of give you some updates of where we're at currently and where we'll need to be here in the short term as we continue to finalize these processes. I want to first apologize on my end. The second paragraph on the background information, I kind of screwed that up. So if you can kind of take that out. That is incomplete and some duplication of where we're at off of previous things. But the purpose of this memorandum is we are talking about headworks components out at the facility. Headworks includes screening, which takes large-scale material, plastics, differing things. We try to get that out at the beginning. The city currently has an existing component there that hasn't been operational for some time. And if you may remember, we also have in some components the way that particular infrastructure was designed and installed for the city a bit ago. It's unfortunately impacting us upstream, and we're getting some settlement and components like that. But we're going to kind of talk through some different options that we've looked at. We've taken those particular aspects, we've tried to put it into cost so we can look at some like versus like as much as we can. So what we've looked at is we've looked at 4 different options. Options 1 and 2 both would replace the existing screw screen in the existing structure with a new screw screen. 2 components with that. The screw screen has some advantages, one being it's a little less costly. It also has some dual functionality in that it dewaters the material that's removed in the same mechanism, so you don't have a second piece of equipment, which we'll talk about that later in the other options. It also has, in this particular sense, it's not as efficient in removing as some of our other options and removing those solids, but it does, I mean, generically, it does a good job. It's a lot better than what we're seeing currently. But it also, because it's not quite as efficient, it wouldn't have as much buildup to drive through, which any reduction in that can help our upstream conveyance. So if we were to look at putting something in the existing structure, it would be, which I'm not recommending, but it would be the likely choice just because it wouldn't have as much impact upstream, okay? In option one, we've looked at, we would include the grit structure, the grit removal system. In option one, we are looking at putting that up by the new aeration basin after the pumps, okay? So just real quick, headworks, it's screening, it's grit removal, because there are a lot of grit will get through the screen, and that's what we're currently spending time and dollars of taking out of the oxidation ditch. We do not want that material to be in our new structure. In option one, we're looking at putting that up and adjacent to the new aeration basin. There's some advantages to that. One of the main components of having any of these either or screen or and/or grit close to the aeration basin is they would be built up high and they wouldn't be as deep of a structure as far as the mechanism would be required. If you think about what's up there now, or what would be if it's up by the aeration basin, keep in your mind 6 foot deep, okay? Option two would be the grit would be put in front of the grit or the new lift station, okay? So now we're digging, so we have excavation, there's differing things. Understand if we build anything north of the new aeration basin, we would expand the footing that would be built as part of the aeration basin. We would expand that to accommodate whatever would be there, and then we'd have vertical supports. So we don't have as deep of a structure, but we have now concrete coming up, and you can see that in the walls, the vertical walls. But we would only need 3 because we would use the north face of the aeration basin as the 4th wall, if that makes sense. But we want those to be built together so there's not differential settling through that. So the option two would be the new grit. We're looking at a PISA grit, which is kind of the standard for those mechanisms. That would be done in front of the lift station, okay? And we can come back to these. I'm going to kind of go through them pretty quick, and then we can talk about questions. Option three, we would have a combined structure that would include screening and then grit, and those would be put in front of the new lift station. We would have to divert around the current flow path to the east, but we would have that resolved through new structure as we would go through that. A few things with that. That will require a deeper equipment, if you will. So I told you to think about 6 foot north. Now think about 12 feet, okay? So a screen has different components go through. It'd be 6 foot more in the middle, okay? It'd be more costly for the equipment. I don't think there's a huge issue in operational conditions either way, but just to keep that in mind, that would be the considerations for that in option three. But option three carries with it the greatest pump protection enhancement, because both of those items would be before the current system or the new system, the new pumps. And then option four would be a similar combined configuration, but it'd be built up at the north end of the aeration basin. Once again, thinking about not as deep, but we still have now the vertical walls, the expansion, and we tried to accommodate all those components in the costing as we go through there. To be right honest with you, I was a little surprised that there wasn't some bigger differentiation in the pricing. And understand, in regards to this, there are a lot of other components that will be involved in this infrastructure component, but a lot of them are like to like, right? If we're going to have railing on this system, we'll have railing on this system, and I'm trying to do like to like in that consideration. The only part of the lift station that's included in this costing is the actual wet well itself, because there is, depending upon the option, it can range from 20 foot deep to 25 foot deep, and that's a decent cost difference between those two. So one of the things that we would like to do, want to present you this information. The staff hasn't had a full, we've had some discussions, but they need some time to kind of go through this as well. But what we would like to have is a consideration at a minimum by your next council meeting to be able to kind of pick what we want to go with, and so we can finalize those components. I will tell you, based off of the costing and all things considered, as I've stated before, I do not believe utilizing that screen mechanism in its current configuration is a good use of funds or puts the city in any real improvement in that consideration of that upstream issue, convergent issue that we have. The other options would, especially 3 and 4, we would get rid of that drop right away. Understand, because Jared asked a good question during our initial discussion just prior. We do not have funds in there to rip that old system out, okay? What we would do is we're going to have pump limiting factors in our new lift station that only so much water can go to the new aeration basin. That's helped us make that size of that infrastructure smaller because we can keep it at that and not see larger inflows. When we see those larger inflows, we're going to hydraulically have, right now, the way we're looking at it, it will back up into the diverging manhole and go through that old structure and go right out into the old pump station and pump into the ditch, okay? So that's how that will operate. But we have to have the hydraulics ready for whatever option that we're going to be looking at, is that we can limit that water that goes down there, and we have 2 conditions. We have the current condition of what the maximum flow would be 1.1 million gallons per day, 2 times your permitted flow. In the future phase would be if we add the 50% capacity. Now we're going up to a little over 1.6 million gallons per day. So hydraulically, that system has to work in either of those conditions, but we're going to try to limit that ability to not completely submerged our infrastructure that we have, both in grit and the screening, so that we can work with that in either case. The pump conditions we can work with very directly. So we'll be able to dial that in to say this is as much as we can pump. We can pump less than that, but it'll only go up to here, it'll build up in the system, bypass into the old system, and we'll have a drawback back into the lift station. So I don't want to look at the new screen being put in the old system. I do want to look at outside of that. Currently, right now, based off of the costing, the operational advantages, those types of things, I think probably option 3 would be your best case scenario. It gives you the greatest pump protection. The cost difference is there, but it's still, it's pushing our budget that we had initially set, but that's actually pretty good because we've added a couple $100,000 for additional infrastructure that we hope we wouldn't need by reutilization. So I think we're still in the budget. I think you get the best bang for your buck. In 20 years, if and when that material, that equipment fails, you need to replace it, will be a little bit more costly at that time. But who knows with technology, there may be a new fandangle that costs less anyway. So with that, I'll stop talking if there's any questions, or anything like that.
Daniel, I have a question. I realize that most of this will be Greek to most of the council since they weren't unable to attend, but can you just relate some of these options to the different sites that we went to?
Oh, yes.
So that I'm a visual person, so.
Okay, so in regards to the grit removal, we're going to have similarities to what we saw at both Goddard and Mays in those two particular. It's a gravity situation that will drop through. The big difference, for those that were there, the Goddard is the screw screen condition, okay? And if you remember the one at Mays, the big unit sticking out of the driveway, that's what we're looking at here with a little caveat. If you remember when we looked, what we're promoting is called a multi-rake screen. What that is there'll be mechanisms, it's on a chamber that it'll bring, and it constantly will grab and bring material off the face of that screen, dump it into, in this case, a washer compactor that takes that material, because that is an important aspect. It takes that off constantly. The one at Mays had a bar screen. If you've ever been out there and you look to the west side where all the flow goes through now, that is a bar screen. That's a manual. Those have big gaps on it, but they're bars and they're aligned vertically, right? So generally when you look at a bar screen, you look at what is the spacing, and the spacing is indication of what's the width between the two inside parts of bars, adjacent bars. The one in Mays is a 1/4 inch separation. That's what we want to be, is a 1/4 inch, no more than a 1/4 inch. What I actually am looking at, and right now preliminarily recommending to you, is we look at a 1/4 inch system. Okay. What we're looking at is a 1/4 inch system, but we're doing it via plate, which is a 2D. It'll be a 1/4 inch hole, as opposed to two bars separated. If you think about it, if you think about a straw coming into your screen, okay, a straw, if all your bars are going this way, the straw comes in here, it's going to catch. What happens if the straw comes in this way? It might wiggle its way through, okay? If you have only a 1/4 inch opening hole, the only way that straw could potentially would be if it's 1 in 1,000 coming in that way, okay? So it's an enhanced removal of that system. So, and it's honestly something that's the 2D as versus the 1D, you know, one-dimensional. It's still going to catch, even like if a elongated rock came through and it just gets lined up right, it might slip through. This would catch that rock. It just isn't going to let much through there. So it is a more efficient system in that case.
So just to clarify, that was the second one we saw at Mays is more
Yes.
similar to what you're recommending?
Mhm.
And are any of these similar to the first one we saw, which was Goddard?
Number 1 and number 2, which
Okay.
actually is very similar to what's sitting out there non-operable right now. Now, I do want to make a point. That we could use a screw screen in option 3 or 4, okay? That isn't an issue. We can look, and if you want to look at, there is some cost differences there. It's not substantial in the scope of the overall. But we could look at that in those considerations if so desired.
Those cost differences on the screws, are they higher, I'm assuming, than what you've got for the bar screens?
The one thing that we have, if we were to use it in option 3 because of the depth, yes, it would be more of a cost than what is shown now, because it would really elongate. It's pretty similar in options 1, 2, if we were to use in the 4 consideration, if that makes sense.
Look, when we went on that tour, one thing that we discussed, moving parts.
Mhm.
The bar screen, there's a chain, there's drive motors, there's sprockets. To me, there's more issues that go wrong.
Potentially, correct.
So is the price difference going to be worth looking at on the screws compared to the bar screen with less moving parts, less potential for failure?
Well, the one big advantage, yes, because the one thing right off the top, if you look at the pricing, if you look at option 1, we have the screw screen installation, and then, or the equipment is about $100,000. Okay, that's for the unit itself. I would have that installation that I have there is a little higher in options 1 and 2 than it would likely be in option 3 or 4, only because it's many times much harder to install new stuff in old existing versus building new and being able. So you could look at that consideration. You're probably looking at a reduction. But if you use that same screen in one of the other options, you're probably going to add another 10 to 20,000 on the equipment. Probably not anything more on the installation, although there might be a little bit. But you're getting one system. You don't have the second washer compactor, which is another motor, which is more moving parts. In fact, the washer compactor, it works similarly as the screw screen. It's just horizontal. As the material comes in, it compacts and spirals that through. That's how it dewaters. So the washer compactor, as a secondary condition, operates very similarly to the screw screen. The screw screen would just be a lot longer than what it is for a washer compactor. So there is some relevance in looking at that costing difference. But if you look at like option 3, for instance, we're looking at equipment costs. You're probably going to push maybe a little bit, very similar to maybe a little bit more for that other screen, but we would remove the washer compactor part of that. So you would have an overall savings for sure in looking at that.
So with that screw compactor, the first thing that comes to mind when you explain how that works, what happens if something gets lodged in there?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a shear bolt somewhere.
Yeah, there's pressure differentials, there's shutoffs, those will all be included in that consideration.
So then now we got to consider, what are we going to have in man hours repairing this?
Yeah.
I like the KISS method. Keep it simple.
Yeah. And the screw screen is the simplest method. There's no doubt about it. It would have the same over pressure components and shutoffs that we would have in any mechanism. And to understand, we would have a mechanical screen in whatever form or fashion, screw screen, multi-rake, and we would have a bypass channel that would operate similarly to what we have now. Well, we would build those spacings a little smaller than we currently have, but if there's an overdrive condition that shuts that screen off, it's going to build up, it's going to go past through the manual system. So it's not a if or. Either one of those conditions would be there, but yeah, you're talking one piece of equipment versus at least two with some more parts inside of it.
So the other question I had, you were talking about flows, that 1.6 million, or a little over 1.6, is that what you're looking at for the new basin?
No,
Or that's
for
total
the,
between the two?
that would be the future. That would be adding those southern parts. The additional 50% is the 1.6. What we're currently talking about is 1.1 million gallons per day.
Into the new,
Into the new aeration basin, correct.
So we'll be able to double our flows with just the new basin. Then at what point does that flow over into?
No. The average that we are building your system to organically is 550,000 gallons per day, your permit. Okay, that's what that unit is. Hydraulically, we are limiting it to only 2 times your permit, the 1.1, so that the volume of those structures and the amount of concrete is reduced, because what happens is that's a typical precipitation event, and the organics aren't going to be any different. So organically, we can work with the system to treat what we need. We're going to limit the amount of rainwater that can go into there because we'll push that off into the oxidation. Typically, if you don't have those other operations, at a minimum, you would build hydraulically your new system to be 3 times your permit, which would already be the 1.65. Okay, so we're building this on an average, what we're building is to your permit. We're not changing your permit. We are going to look at that design of being able to add on an additional 50% of organic treatment in the future if and when needed, with the same peaking factor of 2.
Pump-wise, it would handle that.
The pumps will be able to handle 1.1 24/7, if that's what's needed, correct. And in the future, we're looking at what we would need to do for the 1.6.
So at what point in a big rain event, at what point on the inflow does it start going back over to the current oxidation ditch?
After the instantaneous, let's say 1 minute flow rate extends beyond the 1.1, it will build up through there. There'll be a little buildup in whatever consideration because it has to fill the line. The manholes have to rise as they go up. I mean, it's hard to say, John, if it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but if we're having a huge gush of 2 MGD come down for an hour, effectively for 50 minutes of that, 0.9 of that's going to be going to, that's 900,000 gallons in a day for 1 hour. We're going to be able to handle that definitely in the oxidation ditch. And then hopefully, even if it's a 30-minute, a 3-hour break and we get another storm, well, during that 3 hours, as everything comes down, we're going to have the draw off of the oxidation ditch that has now carried that, let's say, 30,000 gallons over that hour. We're going to try to start draining that as soon as possible back into the wet well. While the flows aren't coming in as high, we'll be able to put it through, already have that, hopefully get that level down so when the next one comes in, because we all know we don't have storms that hit us for 5 minutes or an hour and are done for the next 3 days. I mean, we may have 3 of them in 6 hours, but there are some breaks. So we try to, as quickly as we possibly, and that is a gravity situation. We're not looking at pumping it, which does have some limitations. There's only so much we can take out. But that matches naturally in the wet well, because those levels, if we're getting enough water that's maintaining 1.1, it builds up, it's not going to let any water come in from the oxidation ditch. But as soon as that can bring back down, it'll open up, allow what it can, it'll fill it back up, it may shut again. Pump it down and just keep doing that as much as we can. But the other thing, we'll have VFDs. So 1 of 2 ways those pumps can pump 1.1, and I know I'm just using, it's a large number, but that is about 750 gallons a minute, 760. That will be their capacity. They'll be able to do that at any point that we desire them to do it. But we can have, the way a wet well will typically work is it'll fill up, you pump it, it drops back down, it fills back up, and it'll stop and start, right? We can, if we want to, we'll have VFDs that we could turn the usual flow rate down to maybe 550 or 600 until we start seeing it raising, and it'll ramp back up to catch up. So there's different ways we can operate it, which would minimize your stops and starts. Pumps like to run. They don't like to start or stop. That's the worst part for them.
Just to clarify, because I don't want to make you stand up here for much longer if we don't need to. Will we have, as a council, should we be having discussion now regarding that, or are we going to bring this back, Troy, and discuss it as far as, because I have some things to add, but they're more discussion than questions, so I don't want to muddy the water tonight if it's not necessary.
So the way I feel about this is staff, we're going to review and find what's going to work best. We would like to bring that back and share that with council, and we can have discussions about why we think there's more pros than cons with one particular option over another. And I think we can do that with each one of the components of the wastewater treatment plant as we go through design. And we'll work with Daniel to make that happen. So that's kind of my thought process on this. By all means, I think we're all becoming experts to a certain extent, But there's a lot of different factors that I think are beyond some of our day-to-day knowledge and whatnot, so we'll need to ask some more questions as staff. I think that we're already doing that right now, so we have better clarification, so we can explain it to you all even a little bit better.
And if there's something that comes up prior, because I won't be able to be at your next meeting, unfortunately, but if there's something that comes up prior, either from council or through staff, hey, I want you to focus on this, on that particular question, give me a better breakdown of those costs and what those differences would be. I would certainly could do that to help provide that.
Well, I do think I'll share this then under that circumstance so that, Jared, where you weren't able to be there. One of the questions that I asked at both places at Goddard and Mays was if you had an opportunity to do anything different, what would you do? And specifically, we knew that there were some challenges that could come with the screw screen, or the system that Goddard had. The only thing they said they would do different was something that we aren't even looking at. It had to do with the end of the process. I think their belt press.
Those are belt press.
Yeah, that was
They wanted it a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And they have the same size as what you guys have.
everything else they loved. I asked the same question at Mays, and John alluded to this, that rake system, they didn't indicate that it broke down a lot, but when it did break down, it was significantly more difficult to get. It's super deep pit, and there's just a lot more to repairing that system. So I look forward to hearing you guys' recommendation, because you're the one that has to operate it. But I feel like that's important for you to know that between those two locations and the two different types of systems, that it seemed pretty evident to me which one was more functional for the operators. So that's...
To my understanding, that's a good point. To my understanding, that was the only time it's broke down. But it did, and it was they had a bypass already around. And just so you know, that screen, probably 10 years or less had been in service probably. Because they had their initial, 20 years ago, they put in a very, quote, efficient screening system that couldn't handle what was coming down. So they actually had to put in a second screen, a more robust screen that this multi-rake was, to help protect their secondary screen. But it was shut down for several weeks.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was some really weird, obscure thing.
Yeah, I
that had
couldn't
broken
believe
down.
it was the mechanism on top that had sheared, and I've never heard of that happening in these types of screens, but it did, obviously.
That operator said that the torque sensor failed. It
And it
over-torqued
actually
broke the
twisted
chain.
the top, and it twisted the top mechanism of that system as well as, yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty major in what happened, obviously.
Well, and that's the only thing I wanted to add, so that, staff understood, got to hear that anecdote prior to your discussions. But Daniel, thank you so much for being here. I know that's a bit of a drive anytime you come, but for our peace of mind, it's incredibly helpful to get to hear from you directly.
And I hope, or currently plan on being a regular attendee at your second monthly meeting. So, yes, sir.
Is there any kind of a warranty or guarantee on any electric screen things?
Yeah, typically there's two components that we look at. One is contractually, you will have a 1-year guarantee of the whole system from the contractor through that from the substantial completion date, and that means substantial completion, everything is operational, right? That's the first thing. And then we do have, typically at a minimum, you would have a 1-year guarantee. Many times we extend those off of the equipment, and we can always talk about those and talk about, hey, we want a 3-year or a 5-year. It will cost you more money, but it is an insurance component. Those are things that when we get closer to not even when it goes to KDHE, we're going to submit this by the end of the year to KDHE, and they'll have, I'm going to say a month, but it might be a couple months that they'll be in their review. Those are discussion points that we'll have kind of the minimum in the project documents that go to KDHE, but if we want to amend those later before we put it out to bid and say, yeah, we want a 3-year, we can get costing on that. So you'll have an understanding with those. And sometimes you can do that via an alternate to say, okay, what if we extend everything 3 years, either piece by piece or in total for the equipment? And 10 years usually is a minimum of what you would look at, but many pieces extend way beyond that. So by average, some of them fail in 5 years, unfortunately.
Is there any further questions for Nathaniel from council? Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here, sir.
Have a good evening.
Do you have any additional items for your city administrator's comments, Troy?
I do not.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you for hanging in there. Anybody from the public? We are now ready for public comments, and public comments are welcome at this time. Citizens will be limited to a 3-minute time limit. Comments will only be accepted after providing the city clerk with your name, address, and phone number, so you can be contacted if there are any questions. The city council may or may not choose to comment on citizens' comments, and generally no action will be taken at this meeting. And just to clarify, we'll be opening a public hearing for R&R and then another public hearing for the budget. So just so you know, there'll be a set-aside specific time for any comment on either the R&R or the budget. Are there any community members who'd like to comment at this time? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you. We're ready to move on to the consent agenda. Yes, sir.
One thing just as an update, funding, I know you're looking at the CDBG. Congratulations on that. That's a great opportunity. Troy and I have been discussing another potential grant opportunity that we're exploring. That's due on the 30th, but it's very straightforward, and we would hope to get some. It's through the Kansas Water Office. Just want to let you know, I know he's been working on it. I'm trying to make some other inquiries on the backside. So hopefully that might be another mechanism. Thanks.
All right, seeing none, we are ready for item 3, the consent agenda. I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by Rick Miller to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Motion carries. We're ready to move on to item 4, business items to consider. And just remind you that we are putting the purchase order at the top of that for item A.
Thank you, Mayor. So apologize for getting this in late. I did receive this invoice today, and it's for the annual payment of the street sweeper. I think it's roughly about $48,000. And we have this payment and another payment left. And so we're getting close to paying this off. I wanted to get this in today because our next meeting is not for 3 weeks, and it's due on Friday. So if we don't approve it, then I would have a penalty for this. So if there's any questions, let me know.
I move to pay $48,689.75 to People's Bank and Trust for the street sweeper.
I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by Cecil Burdette to pay the $48,689.75 to People's Bank and Trust for the purchase of, for the September 2025 payment for the street sweeper. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item B.
Next item is the CDBG Housing and Public Hearing. We are closing out the grant that we use for housing upgrades, and a lot of this included doors and windows. I think we gave a little bit of an update, but we're talking over $300,000 worth of improvements to over a dozen homes, and I think it's been pretty successful. So we have Megan here from SCED, and she's giving a big wave, and she's going to give a little bit of an update, and then I think she's going to give the cue for the mayor to open up the hearing, and then I think she has some opportunities to talk during the hearing as well. Oh, we got to check your, all right, let's try now. Yes. Yes.
We oversee procurement processes, fiscal and file compliance, application processing and approvals, housing inspections, and ongoing monitoring with the Kansas Department of Commerce for this housing grant. So I'm here tonight to share the results of the city's Community Development Block Grant for Housing Rehabilitation Program number 22HR 006. So the City of Lyons was awarded $300,000 in federal CDBG funds through the Kansas Department of Commerce, with over $108,000 in local match contribution, which was provided through landlord participation and the Kansas Weatherization Assistance Program, or KWAP, with only city funds contributing $2,000. This program not only revitalizes existing housing stock for future generations, but also ensures that low to moderate income residents can live in safe and energy efficient homes. So in this grant, each project was carried out in 2 phases. First, we utilize grant funds for major repairs on homes, and then we work in the secondary phase with our weatherization services at SCED to conduct more energy efficient air sealing measures, HVAC work, in a secondary phase. So SCED contributed nearly $40,000 in additional services to this grant through the weatherization program. The program ran from March 22nd to June 2025. Over the course of this grant, 11 homes were rehabilitated and brought from substandard to standard condition within a target area. These grants are no longer being required to have a specific target area moving forward starting this application year, but your grant was written during a time when those were required. So that target area was West Main Street to the north, North Douglas Avenue on both sides of the street, from the corner of West 2nd Street and North Douglas Avenue, and the corner of West 2nd Street and East Avenue North on both sides of the street, North Pioneer Avenue south of the railroad tracks on both sides of the street, and West Avenue North south of the railroad tracks on both sides of the street, and East Avenue North to the west. Woo! 100% of the households were served were of low to moderate income, and this program meeting federal compliance requirements. The beneficiaries included 2 elderly households, 5 female head of households, 5 Caucasian and 6 Hispanic homes, with a total of 26 residents directly benefiting. So each home received up to $25,000 in repairs, addressing critical health, safety, and structural improvements. And then, of course, qualified homes also received an average of between $2,000 to $8,000 in weatherization services through KWAP. So all homes that were constructed before 1978 received lead-based paint hazard controls completed by licensed lead renovation contractors. In addition, all homes were tested for the presence of radon gas, which is the second leading cause of lung cancer. As stated, the city did successfully expend all $300,000 of funds on this project, and all program requirements were met in full compliance. these types of projects that we work with cities on really do make a meaningful impact to communities by improving the safety and stability and overall quality of housing in Kansas. And we are grateful for the opportunity to have served you and worked on this project with you and your city. So I just personally want to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of this project with you and the dedicated staff there at the city of Lyons, and most importantly, the residents of Lyons who participated in this program. So at this time, I have no further data to report on the program, and as part of compliance for the performance public hearing, I welcome the city to ask me any questions that you may have, and when you're ready to open the floor for public comment.
So Megan, do I go ahead and open the public hearing officially at this point then? Or do we wait until after
You may,
comments?
if you like, unless you want to ask me any questions first.
All right, let's start with council. Are there any questions that you might have for Megan? All right, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing for the CDBG closeout of the grant number 22-HR-006. It is 6:53 p.m. Are there any of the members of the public that would like to be heard regarding this grant process? Thank you both. All right, Megan, I'll have to have a little bit of guidance from you about how we need to move forward. You let me know when it's time to close as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
Let me answer her and then I'll answer your question, Cecil. My question, Megan, was just, I'll have to have a little bit of guidance from you as far as when to close the public hearing, since we are in that public hearing right now. Cecil, in answer to your question, his question was how much of the money was expended. It was the 100% of the $300,000 that was granted to us.
Yes, that is correct. Sorry, I had a little bit of trouble hearing you on my end.
Mayor, I think the microphone is actually over there over at the computer. So maybe you might project your voice over that direction. I think maybe she might hear you a little bit better.
I don't know if it helps for me to look that direction, Megan. You could give a head nod if it does.
Actually, thank you, sorry.
Awesome, no problem. So we'll just have to have we don't have any members of the public that have any interest in speaking, and so I'll just need a little bit of guidance from you if that is the totality of what we need and we close out the public hearing, or if you need any further information prior to doing that.
Thank you so much, I appreciate that. I could hear much better that time. I thought you said something completely different earlier. If there's no further public comment or anything for me to record as part of the citizen participation plan, then we are good as far as the public hearing goes. If there are no members of council who have further questions or comments for myself from SCED, that is everything we need for that section, and we're good to go.
Well, that was short and sweet and to the point. So we will close the public hearing for the CDBG grant closeout. It is 7:57 p.m. 6:57. Thank you. I don't know how to read a clock. 6:57 p.m. And Megan, there are no comments from council. We just thank you so much for the work that you've done on this and helping us to be prepared and ready for audit and other processes that we've had to go. So thank you so much.
Mayor, if I can add a couple of comments.
Absolutely.
So I've had a chance to work with Megan and her team, and they have done an outstanding job. It's a very complicated grant with a lot of paperwork that has to be done, especially when we're talking about 11 different homes that we have to work with and contractors and tracking all the money. We did a great job of spending all the money. $2,000 that the city spent to get $300,000 worth of grant improvements to our community, I think is awesome. So just want to say I think Tanner was very much involved with this, so of course I want to give him a shout out, even though he's not here. But SCED is quality group that I've really had a lot of confidence in. So I want to thank Megan on this project as well.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much, Troy, and thank you all so much for having me and allowing me to attend virtually. I'll let you all go. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, and council, we will need, if you'll see on your agenda comments, we have a recommended motion here. Whoever does make that motion, I would point out on the grant, there is a small typo on the grant identified as, it should be 22-HR-06. Currently it reads 23. So if you would just make that change before making the motion, I'd appreciate it.
I move to record the comments from the City of Lyons CDBG Citizens Participation Plan and to authorize city staff to sign all documents and expend any final funds to close out the grant identified as 22-HR-006.
Second.
I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by John Mell to record the comments from the City of Lyons CDBG Citizen Participation Plan and to authorize city staff to sign all documents and expend any final funds to close out the grant identified as 22-HR-006. Is there any discussion? Thank you, council. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are ready for item 4C.
Item 4C is in regards to a land bank purchase approval. If you're not aware, we have a really substantial area of property that's land banked in Quivira neighborhood area. And we have a construction company that's interested in purchasing this because they have interest from a family that would like to have a house built on this property. And it does require us to do a hearing. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. And if there's any other specifics that you have questions about, I'd be happy to answer those.
Hold tight, just 1 second, Deb. So we do have to convene as the council and then reconvene as the Land Bank Authority. So if I could get a motion to do that, we'll go ahead and convene, open as the Land Bank Authority, and then we can have then we'll have discussion.
Forget it, I don't need to.
We'll still
It's
need to
okay.
have discussion regardless, so
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's in the proper order.
You need a motion to.
Yes, please.
I'll make the motion, we move into land bank.
I second that.
We have a motion by John Mell with a second by Angela Evans to convene as the Land Bank Authority. It is 7:01 p.m. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. All right, we are now officially the Land Bank Authority. Now is a great time for the discussion and questions.
My question is, they're definitely going to build a house if we give this land to them? Or maybe they're gonna build a house? I just don't wanna see that become a big shed full of stuff. So will there be restrictions, like that's a residential area, so it has to be a house?
So within the land bank information, it requires them to build a house that's like other houses in that community, in that neighborhood. There's also a time frame that requires them to build it. If not, then we claw back that property.
Awesome, thank you.
The people that want to build the house, are they aware that the tax abatement sunsets in a few years?
I don't know who is actually building the house, or, I'm sorry, requesting to build the house. I'm not sure what they are aware of.
I'd be curious if they're aware that that tax incentive does sunset, and maybe that would change their mind. I hope not. I'd like to see houses built over there, but just a thought.
I think if it does get approved, they'll find out a little bit more about it, and if they decide not to, we will get the land back.
Troy, just out of curiosity, what's that mechanism for us to, or you, staff, to be able to review the house design to make sure it fits with the other properties. I think the concern that I would have is just making sure that we don't reduce the value of the homes in that area.
Most definitely. I think we've already seen a rendering that kind of already fits the style of the homes as well as the square footage. I think we're looking at something that is well over 200,000 square feet. That's going to be
2,027 square feet.
2,027 square feet. Okay. And I think one of the reasons why they chose that location is because they wanted a house that was like the rest of the neighborhood as well. So once this is approved, we will share this with the builder, and we'll get a little bit more specifics about what the design looks like and making sure that it fits our requirements.
Council, do you, oh, sorry. No, I was actually just asking if there are any further questions or comments.
I just want to say, so I move to approve the contract for Josh Hood to purchase the property at 8 Career Heights in the city.
Second.
Rick, can you repeat that one more time in the microphone? I'm sorry.
I move to approve the contract for Josh Hood to purchase the property at 8 Quivira Heights from the city of Lyons.
Second.
I'm going to go ahead and take Angela since she seconded it first. I have a motion by Rick Miller with a second by Angela Evans to approve the contract for Josh Hood to purchase the property at 8 Quivira Heights from the city of Lyons. Is there any discussion?
How much, what is cost, or how much are they giving the city of Lyons for? What is the fee that we are getting from Hood?
What we've been charging in regards to all the different properties that's on the land bank roll is $300.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, does this need to be a roll call or is it just a aye vote?
I think it needs to be a roll call since it's a hearing.
Thank you. Bailey, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Debbie Metzger,
Yes.
John Mell,
Yes.
Jim Sedino,
Yes.
Cecil Burdette, Angela Evans, Rick Miller,
Yes.
Sheila Spillman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council. It is 7:07 PM. We will now close as a land bank authority. I'm sorry, language is hard tonight. And reconvene as the City Council of Lyons. We are ready for item D, and I'll go ahead and take that one, Troy. Council, I thank you for your indulgence in giving me an extra week to get some more information regarding this appointment. I really hate doing this to you, but I find myself in a position where I just don't feel like I still have enough information. Actually, the more questions I've asked, the more questions are raised. So, especially as it pertains to the safety of any individual that we would have on the fire department or any of our personnel that's already on the fire department, it just, I don't take that question lightly. And so, so I'm just going to ask that we hold off again until I'm able to make a
Is that on the mayoral appointment for
Yes,
the
ma'am.
fire department?
yes, ma'am.
Why are we waiting?
So the concern that I have is that this young man has great education regarding being a firefighter.
Mhm.
However, he is a college student and he is spending the vast majority of his time outside of Lyons, Kansas. So he is unable to train or attend meetings for the vast majority of the year with the other members of the fire department. So there's just, I don't want to speak out of turn more than that, but that's the concern I have, is that might present a safety issue. It's really important in my experience, and granted, I'm not a firefighter, but I have siblings who are, for people who are willing to put their lives at risk to keep a community safe, that they need to be able to work well together without having to talk sometimes even. And my concern is if he's unable to attend trainings and meetings, that rapport that is so important for safety is not able to be present as long as he's not here in person.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. That was gonna be my concern about this, is because I know that he was going to college out west, and that is a 3-hour drive, and that he wasn't gonna be able to attend or be here very often. So I'm glad that you addressed that, because that was gonna be my concern if we voted on that. So thank you for addressing that.
Can I say something on this since, my opinion on this would be that if we had this individual be put on type of reserves, that if he comes back, then we can use him, but he would be on a reserve side of it and maybe not taking up a spot right now, that if we do have the fortunate of filling those spots to do that. And like I said, I hold nothing against this young man. He's a very good fireman, a very good kid, and I think that would be the best, in my opinion.
If I can share a little bit about that as well, I think we need to look a little bit more deeply in regards to what are the liabilities, what would be his role in regards to active fires, training, and attending meetings, because if he's in a reserve role, what does that actually imply? So that's something that, and as the mayor mentioned, I think just buying a little bit more time so we could get a little bit better understanding.
So I'd like to add on what Rick said. This isn't the first time that we've had a firefighter go on to college and spend time at college and then come back. So when they do that, that is exactly what they do. They put them in a reserve status so that they can still, when they are home for spring break, Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, stuff like that, they can still respond. And I'd like to point out that Ethan has been on the department for the county, because the county is different from the city. They can be on when they're 16. And he's been on for over a year now, and he is a good firefighter. He's a good one that we'd be lucky to have.
My concern is what the mayor shares, though. It's training. It's just like a part-time officer, a reserve officer. And I get it. I'm nothing against Ethan, but my concern would be is if he's missed 3-4 months and then he comes home, he's missed 3 or 4 months of training, and then is he gonna be attached to a firefighter the entire time? And I know he went through fire science, I get it. He went through the 2 years program, I understand that. That's my only concern, and not just the safety of other firefighters, but his safety as well.
Well, as far as doing something alone, we don't do anything by ourselves. We don't do anything in teams of 2. We do everything in teams of 4. You have to have a backup for your backup for your backup for your backup. So I wouldn't have any concerns with it.
I think we need to look at this from the point that we have one now who says we don't have another one on the department. And we just need to build something to come up with something where we have kids that are going to school somewhere else and they do come back. We need to figure out if there is a reserve program, what we can do to make one, and the consequences. Because if he come back, Ethan come back, let's say for Thanksgiving, we're not gonna send him into a fire. We're not gonna do that. We've got enough people that we're gonna sit there. He's not going in by himself, as John says. We will be able to assure that he can do that. And I have, like I said, he did a very good job, has done a very good job in going in there. And he's been put in some situations in the county that it's a learning process. And just because you go to school does not mean that you know how to training. It's, you throw yourself into the fire and then you'll learn a lot, especially it's hot, so.
If he's presently on the county's force, would it not be just as appropriate to let him stay on that? He will, I mean, we're not controlling that, but when he gets out of school, that we could invite him in at that time to be a part of our department? Does he need to be on it now?
City and county, they go hand in hand. county goes to city calls. Sometimes city has to go out to a county call. It all depends on the situation. There's no textbook that's gonna say, this is how it's done. Because every situation in the fire industry is different. There's not a single one that's alike. So county and city, they just go hand in hand. That's the way that Lyons and Rice counties have been set up.
How does this work? Is he,
So, you're talking about a reserve position or an actual position. How does this work if he's taking a position? I don't know how, because you guys are volunteers, so I don't know how this works. So how is this working? If we appoint him, is he taking somebody's position where somebody else can be appointed? Or if we put him in a reserve status where he can sit there, still go to school, and he's not taking somebody's position if we need to appoint somebody else that can actually respond all the time and be here? How does that work?
We've had this happen years ago, and we've had people that, for some reason, couldn't make all the runs, couldn't do all this stuff, but they would come back in certain times, and they used to go ahead and be put on reserve. If they would show up, they would be paid somewhat. I mean, you gotta have insurance for these people. The county has their insurance, the city has their insurance. I guess the thing is that I think it needs to be figured out how to have these kids that have wanted to serve in our community, that have gone away. We've got to figure out how we can get them, if they come back, to help us out. We need to have that. And how do we do that? I think that's where the chief needs to kind of figure out, with Troy maybe. I mean, maybe somebody else has had this type of situation, and how do they handle it in other departments? And as far as taking away somebody, who knows? You might all of a sudden have 2 or 3 people here in town and say, hey, I want to be on the fire department.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you say, well, we can't do that, but it's not fair to have somebody not here all the time where you could fill that in there, because face it, there's some old guys on that department, and we need to have the younger people that can make a run, or, younger. I know there's a couple businessmen that have talked to me about trying to join. They would be really good, especially during the daytime, that they own their own business, they could take off. So there's a couple guys right there, that makes you 24, 25, so. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, and that does. I'm just thinking that maybe we do need to, what we call them the Air Force, table it, but, so you can have, to find out, can we build a reserve program? Can we come up with guidance for a reserve program? I'm not against Ethan by any means, but the thing about it is I know he's out in Colby going to school, and, when he comes back, give him an opportunity to do some training with him, and maybe not just take a spot. I mean, I like the idea of a reserve program and work him in that way. And then when he comes back from college, by all means, if that's what he still wants to do, put him on the fire department.
He's already on it. I mean, he's already got the deal.
Sure, so then he could just slide right into it from the reserve program.
So if he's already on the county, it really doesn't make any difference whether he's on the Lyons one anyway, at this time, until he gets out of school. So why make it an issue now, which might take somebody else's place if we had some people in Lyons that wanted to volunteer? I can't see that happening too much, but I don't think that, he still would, if he came home at Thanksgiving time and there was a fire, he's going to go to the fire because he's on the county, whether it's in Lyons or whether it's out in the county.
Well,
correct?
the problem though is that here we go again, when you have training for the county, and he's not around here to do training for the county, county kind of needs to figure this out too, and do a reserve type program also. Face it, you go ahead and go out on a JAWS run, and somebody hasn't been around there for 4 months, the basics what to do, but all of a sudden there's a piece of equipment on there you know nothing about. But I think that if the county can come up with a reserve program similar, we can work together to develop a program and go from there, because face it, you're still going to take, even though it says Rice County on there, you're still 25 people, and it doesn't matter if they're Lyons or Rice County, it's still the same. I mean, you still got the same amount of people.
Well, and I can tell you, the difference for me is when it comes to making hard decisions, and I can't speak for the rest of you, but I know for me, when it comes to making hard decisions or decisions that I don't want to make, I say to Troy all the time, what's going to let me sleep at night? And what I can tell you wouldn't allow me to sleep at night is because this has to be a mayoral appointment that then you approve. And so my name is going to be on this. And if something happened to him because of lack of training, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a really long time before I ever sleep at night. And it has nothing to do with my confidence in the education he's had so far. It has nothing to do with my confidence in his desire to serve this community. It is merely, I'm very concerned about the safety aspects of this. I would be very comfortable with you working with Chief Reed to put together. I love the idea of a reserve program that puts some safety parameters in place so that we can foster these young people that want to come up and serve our community in that manner, but still making sure that we're doing it in a safe way that that I would be comfortable with.
I did have a conversation with Chief Reed a couple weeks ago. We talked a little bit about this. And then in recent, I think, a quick update that I needed to have a little bit more conversation with him as you were waiting to have a conversation with this candidate. Tabling it, we have 3 weeks until the next meeting. I think that would give us enough time to talk to Chief and look at maybe there is a reserve program, or what are the parameters in regards to what is his service in that capacity and in that shift. So maybe as we find out more information, that will help you decide which direction you want to go and whatnot. Ultimately, I think a lot of this, the onus falls on Chief. He's the one that's making the recommendation. He is the one that has to have the confidence of this individual, and he's the one that's directly responsible for his training and his safety. So even though you would be making the appointment, a lot of it falls on his shoulders as well. So, and that's what we had that conversation with him, and we'll get a better understanding.
Well, I would feel more confident in backing a mayoral appointment if a working firefighter says we need to look at a reserve program. I think we ought to pay attention to that. And so, do we need a motion to table this, or do we just make a decision to table?
Because it is a business item to consider, I think probably a motion to table until the next meeting would be appropriate. I think if it is our direction as a council to ask Troy to work with Brad to at least come with a proposal of a, then I think we can do that just by sharing with him. We'd like him to do that.
I move that we table the mayoral appointment of Ethan Luck to the Lyons Fire Department do I need to put a time limit on it?
Probably just until the next.
Until the next meeting to look into a possible reserve component of training.
Second.
I have a motion by Angela Evans and a second by John Mell to table the mayoral appointment of Ethan Luck to the fire department until the next meeting, October 6th, with further instruction for Troy to pursue looking into a possible reserve program. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Motion carries.
The next item is in regards to a special events permit for a Veterans Day Parade sponsored by the Rotary Club. And to let you know, they have already turned in the permit and have actually paid for it. They paid the $25 fee, so they're not asking to waive it. It's my understanding that they've had this similar parade in the past. Last council meeting, we approved a designated parade route that they would be using. And you know what, it escapes me what the date is.
We're, November 15th, I will say there's a couple corrections to this permit that I need to make. I met with Chief Holiday and then another community member who's volunteering to help with some of the planning, just briefly this morning, and we realized a couple things, that the gathering space is going to be the proper place for the ceremony, so that is more specific. And then also parade start time, I believe that we wanted to actually do it at 10:30 with the ceremony shooting for an 11 o'clock for the ceremony. Jason Beaver was the gentleman that met with as a veteran, and he felt like it would be really impactful to have the ceremony be at the 11th hour.
I'll make a motion to approve the special event permit for the Veterans Day Parade sponsored by the Rotary Club.
I have a motion by John Mill with a second by Angela Evans to approve the special permit for the Veterans Day Parade sponsored by the Rotary Club. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item F.
Next item is an agreement contract with SCED. We just talked about SCED with the previous grant. This is another grant that it's going to be a CBDG grant that we're asking $650,000 for to go towards the wastewater treatment plant, which is approximately 10% of the loan that we have that would defray the cost long-term. The cost of bringing SCED on is $35,000, which sounds like a lot, but actually is very much a deal, because over the years that we are going to be doing the construction, they're actually working with the disbursement funds. They're the ones that are actually reviewing the funds. It goes through an audit process. They put in a lot of hours that normally would be taken up by staff, and so it definitely is something I think that is a great bargain for us. Also, as we're asking for $650,000, that $35,000 would be paid out of that grant. So it's not costing us any money in that particular situation.
If we took a grant like this, are we limiting ourselves from any other grants?
No, in fact, if you recall, Daniel was talking about that. He talked about this particular grant, and he and I are also looking at another potential grant that would be a whole lot more, actually, if we were successful. But we can definitely apply for any grant that we need to. This doesn't limit us from other opportunities.
I move to approve the SCED contract to cover the cost of writing a grant for the CDBG grant. The cost not to exceed $650,000, is that the cost? Or 35?
35.
Okay. The cost not to exceed $35,000.
Second.
I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by Rick Miller to approve the SCED contract to cover the cost of writing a grant for the CDBG grant, the cost not to exceed $35,000. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Motion carries. You guys are amazing. We have a little bit longer to go, so thank you for hanging in there with us tonight. Just to clarify, Patrick, do I go ahead and immediately open the hearing? Yeah. Okay, great. The meeting of the Lyons governing body will come to order at 7:28 p.m. on September 15th, 2025, with 7 of the 8 voting members present. Welcome, everyone, to the revenue neutral rate hearing. The purpose of this hearing is for us to listen and answer objections of taxpayers relating to revenue neutral rate and the proposed tax rate as required by Kansas Statute 79-2988. The hearing will now be open for comments. Each person will have 3 minutes to voice their concerns. Are there any taxpayers that would like to be heard?
We did this last year. Gary Dobbins, I-11 South P. 620-680-0255. I asked last year why. You up to 252, now you're up to 57. What's the purpose? Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to, since I'm 70 years old, why are we trying to cause homeowners more problems? Why do we have that? We've already accepted the $25 for the sewer treatment plant because we had to have it done. It was 20 years ago that we should have had it done. But now we're doing property tax. I hate property tax because that tells me that I do not own my property. It means that the city owns my property because they can raise my taxes, and if I don't pay it, they can take my property. I don't like it. That's it.
Are there any other community members who would like to be heard? If I may, first of all, thank you so much for your comments, Gary. I understand that as a property owner in the city of Lyons myself. I understand that. I had asked our city administrator, Troy Houtman, if he would be prepared to share with our community members what approximately the financial impact for you from year to year are. And then also, if you wouldn't mind maybe answering some of the questions as to why we need to increase. I think, for example, last year's, the insurance thing would be an important bit of information to share, as well as the safety concern of the fire truck.
So just to clarify a few things, the R&R rate is actually 50.363 mils. And what we're actually looking for is 54.521. So just a little over 4 mils is what we're asking for. Last year we were, I can't remember the exact amount, but we were roughly around 52 mils, I think a little bit more than 52 mils. So as we're looking at the budget and moving forward with some of the requests that we're looking at, one of them was to replace one of our fire apparatuses, one of our fire trucks, and that is a very difficult purchase with the current budget that we have right now. The additional 2 mils would, I'm sorry, the additional 4 mils brings us up to about an additional $80,000 per year for the entire amount. So we're talking, we had talked a little bit about this, but if we divide that between each one of the homeowners, it's roughly about $50 a homeowner. And it also depends on what your particular value is of your home as well. So those were some of the big highlights when we went through the budget, line item by line item. And if we want to address some of these needs, this is one of the options that we need to look at. I think Gary's correct in regards to sales tax is one of the things that is often used for some of these purchases, and that's something that we would like to see more of. However, that is one of the weaknesses of this community, is the lack of businesses. And so there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but I think this is one of the best options for us to move forward with to get the funding that we need over several years. And what we talked about this as well, that could be a situation where we lease a new fire truck, a new ladder fire truck, or we can purchase this after savings from a couple years, or several years actually, and that just gives us different options.
Is there any discussion concerning the revenue neutral rate and our proposed budget?
Well, yes. I would just like to say, I've talked to constituents in my ward and people outside my ward that are very upset about all the raises and things, yet they're not seeing the city tighten their belt buckle. And the comment was, you know, if the city is gonna expect the residents to do without so they can pay their bill, then the city needs to tighten their belt buckle too. And so I'm just conveying what was told to me. And if we as a council would look at the accounts payable and really go over that, there's some things that we as a city government could do without.
Do you have specific examples of that, Deb?
I could get it. I mean, I don't have right now, but I could.
We need to think this thing through very carefully. I understand not wanting to pay higher taxes. I understand not liking to pay higher utility bills for that $25. I mean, you know, it impacts us. And that's one reason why the city administrator, the city clerk, some of these important city leaders need to be living in the city so that they pay the same tax rates. Whereas if you don't live in the city, you're not paying for that stuff.
So, and not only that, Sheila, the price of everything has went through the roof. It doesn't matter if you go to Walmart, Dillon's, it doesn't matter where you go. The price of everything has went up. So if the price at the grocery store goes up, that means the price for everything the city does has went up as well. A load of rock has jumped from $13 a ton to $16 a ton. Everything is going up. That's just the fact of it. So, but if you look around at the county, Sterling, Little River, every other community, exceeding the revenue neutral rate's not new. Every community is doing it. Almost every community is doing it. And the vast majority of counties are doing it. Townships are doing it. It's not just the city of Lyons. It's all over the place.
If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I move we adopt a resolution to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
Just to clarify, it does have to be read. I was not sure. Okay. I can read that when I respond on the, so it's Angela. John. I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by John Mell to adopt a resolution to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. A resolution of the City of Lyons, Kansas to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. Whereas the revenue neutral rate for the City of Lyons was calculated as 50.363 mils by the Rice County Clerk, excuse me. And whereas the budget proposed by the governing body of the City of Lyons will require the levy of a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. And whereas the governing body held a hearing on September 15th, 2025, allowing all interested taxpayers desiring to be heard an opportunity to give oral testimony. And whereas the governing body of the City of Lyons, having heard testimony, still finds it necessary to exceed the revenue neutral rate, Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the City of Lyons, the City of Lyons shall levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate of 54.521 mils. This resolution shall take effect and be enforced immediately upon its adoption and shall remain in effect until future action is taken by the governing body, adopted this 15th day of September 2025 and signed by the mayor. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Debbie Metzger. John Mell. Jim Sedino. Cecil Burdette. Angela Evans. Rick Miller. Sheila Spillman. Resolution carries.
Thank you, Bailey, and thank you, council. This concludes the hearing on the revenue neutral rate. It is 7:39 p.m. Next, we will have this county city budget hearing. The purpose of this hearing is for us to listen and answer objections of taxpayers related to the proposed 2026 budget. The hearing will now be open for comments. Each person will have 3 minutes to voice their concerns. Are there any comments concerning the published 2026 budget? There being no further public comments, is there any discussion concerning the 2026 budget? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I move that we adopt the Lyons 2026 budget.
I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by Sheila Spielman to adopt the Lyons 2026 budget. Is this also a roll call? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Debbie Metzger. John Mell. Jim Sedino. Cecil Burdette. Angela Evans. Rick Miller. Sheila Spillman. Budget carries.
This completes the hearings for the 2026 budget process. Thank you for coming, and we will move on to, looks like we do not have any further items on the agenda. Council, thank you for hanging in there tonight. I know this was a long one. Our next council meeting is Monday, October 6, 2025 at 6 p.m. right here in City Hall.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I do have an announcement.
Great.
So, in the theme of what Sheila had presented, I just want to let you all know that I have purchased a house here in Lyons. And I bought the house 2 weeks ago. I'm having some renovations done to the house. I'm still in my apartment, but I plan to be moving into the house later on in October. And I'm pretty excited about that. So I will be paying my taxes.
Congratulations, Troy. Is there any further communication from council for the good of the group? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make them,
I have a motion by Angela Evans with a second by Deb Metzger to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Motion carries. It is 7:42 p.m.